Class number 5 was the 10-part session that we're doing at Alternative Thinking Bookstore, 758 Bathurst Street. Class 5 is, we're going to basically be going out of just the information about Noble Drawley and then getting into lot information and words and stuff like that to start moving in that direction now, right? Because based on you know, like the new people coming in and stuff like that, you know, we've been you know, noticing the current rising. Like more people want to know about the Moorish information. People are specific with regard to the information that they want right now. And majority of people want that whole sovereignty information idea. You know, that's what that's the next level for a lot of people, right? And them not understanding whatever nation that they belong to that are claiming to have some type of sovereign immunity status. The only way that they can do that in the lands of the Americas and the adjoining islands is under the Moors, because this is the Moorish dominion. So we're going to go from that into writings of Noble Drawley, stuff that Noble Drawley said, so that we can get a perspective of what he actually said, not just, you know, the stuff that's supposed to be proclaimed every meeting and you know, the Circle 7, but actual things that people documented, you know what I mean? So we could have it right now and decipher it in the way that it's supposed to get deciphered, because those people back then had it and didn't do nothing with it. So obviously it wasn't for them. I'm not taking nothing away from them, but you had it and you didn't do nothing with it. So obviously it's not your stuff. It wasn't for you. You were just the custodian, making sure everything looks good and making sure everything's in the right order, in the right filing cabinet, so when the real ones come, it's easier to get it and do whatever we're supposed to do with it. You know, it's easy to apply. So, to be proclaimed every meeting. So when we first came with this information, and we brought out the information that the sellouts of Noble Drawley tried to hide, one of the things was this letter that Noble Drawley wrote that he said has to be proclaimed in every meeting. That Moors weren't proclaiming in every meeting, which is why we're in the situation where we're at right now talking about this. All right, so, dear brother Islam, I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as an American citizen, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that contribute to the movement and uplifting funds, the ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement that will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it bad. Never before have I needed finance as badly as I do at present, that I may shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without me, the prophet, being the head. It has been proven by my work, in which I have performed in the last few months, because I was at the governor's inauguration to represent the Moorish nation, the Moorish divine and national movement, and I will be at the inauguration of President Hoover for the same cause, Noble Drawley. So we talk about the sellout of Noble Drawley, and what we're just gonna read right now is RV Bay publication, Bringing the People Back into the Constitutional Fold of Government. And this is from page number 37, Events Leading to the Death of the Prophet. Let's do a backup to just before Noble Drew Ali passed form in 1929, as this was led to the above debauchery. Noble Drew Ali successfully headed the Moorish Divine and National Movement of the world under the Moorish Holy Temples of Science, with thousands of members that had went into close to 1 million or more by the time of the infiltration. He gained respect and support of various congressmen, such as Oscar the Priest, as Noble Drew Ali was a true diplomat. There was a fellow member, Claude Green, who became very jealous of him and wanted to take over the operation. Now, I can't be sure if Green was a devoted member or an informant, as there is very little information leading to the event wherein Drew Ali and Green had an argument. Green put Noble Drew Ali's furniture on the street as an indication that he was now the new leader. Later, they found Green's body shot and stabbed. They, the FBI, immediately came after Drew Ali, where they found him sitting with his wife and some members collaborating, as the FBI claimed. They took him to prison. He had two consuls who later gained political prominence, Aaron Payne and William L. Dawson, or Davidson. Aaron Payne or William L. Davidson. The principal being Payne. Payne tried to hold things together, and this is why Gibsons broke into his office. While Noble Drew Ali was in prison, he wrote the following letter, which is said to be the last writings of his, because when he got out on bail, he was dead within a few weeks. They report that it was either from the beating he received by the police, admitting he was beat, or from the beating he may have received from Green's posse. Noble Drew Ali's last letter. To heads of all temples, Islam, I, your prophets, do hereby and now write you a letter as a warning and appeal to your good judgment for the present and the future. Though I am now in custody for you and the cause, it is all right and it is well for all who still believe in me and my Father God. I have redeemed all of you, and you shall be saved, all of you, even with me. I go to bat Monday, May 20th, before the grand jury. If you are with me there, if you are with me, be there. Hold on and keep faith, and great shall be your reward. Remember my laws, and love ye one another. Prefer not a stranger to your brother. Love and truth and in peace I leave you. Peace from your prophet. Now the FBI had many informants and infiltrators who were members of various temples. They utilized surveillance and microphones. They reported the temple meetings as being conducted in the following manner. First, there is a minor sheikh or sheikhess or chairman who reads from and explains the Quran. Then a more elaborate disclosure by the grand sheikh. Christian hymns are sang with Allah, Drew Ali, and Muslim substituting God, Christ, and Christian. I think they were left in the fog once the Prophet passed form. It was like they were not able to continue his great works, and they were left unfinished. Not because of the Prophet, but because of the need to be guided by someone with integrity and intelligence. You must remember, this movement took root within only 40 years of supposed end of slavery of the Moors in North America. The investigation was just after the Depression and at the helm of the Japan War. A lot of the Moors in North America could not read very well. The Prophet said, if I told you everything, you would go back to sleep. I think that is what they did, due to a loss, thereby a lack of a true, integrated, and intelligent leadership. Now I recognize after reading through these pages that there was a major investigation and infiltration, and that is where some of the things now considered traditional crept into the mix. For instance, there was a particular temple in Richmond who would not speak to anyone else unless they were a Moor. They described them as being low-lying poor Negroes who were ignorant, and they determined they did not have the intelligence to be subversive to the government. They made no attempt to expand and talked little with people outside of the organization. By the time they got to Kirkland Bay, he was totally aware of the investigation, and he expressed to the FBI that he was planning to institute a suit against a New York temple leader for some others for infringement, fraudulently opening temples without proper authority. Sounds like what you hear today, doesn't it? There isn't one temple leader he said he would not press charges because he was very, very ill. The name was undisclosed. Imagine the FBI's investigation starting out with local chapter number 35, which opened in 1936 in Hartford, Connecticut, headed by a Grand Chief out of Brooklyn, Robert Washington Bay. Then they, FBI, discover more and more activity and recognize that the members are seriously battling to bring charges against each other. I think it was more like a three-ring circus. Take note that this started at the so-called law enforcement, lower and local levels. These people, sheriff, state attorney, and local police officers, were ignorant themselves. It was when they got to the later years, around the 1950s or so, that by the knowledge of C. Curtman Bay, sometimes spelled Curtman, C-U-R-T-M-A-N, instead of K-I-R-K-M-A-N. They began to recognize that their investigation and intent to accost and suppress the movement and the issues of nationality surrounding the movement would have been taken to a higher level of law. Kirkman had a farm wherein Moors were employed and were able to provide sustenance needs for the Moorish community. Turner L. also secured a loan for a 100-acre farm in Berkshire, Connecticut to purchase livestock, and there was a chicken farm in Gordon Heights, Long Island. Earlier at the beginning of their investigation, they threatened people with taking money under false pretenses and the confidence game. They also made allegations of a government overthrow by the Moors and the Japanese. One of the Grand Chiefs, Washington Bay, was incarcerated early in the investigation based on a statute to make criminal the teachings of a belief that advocates overthrowing by violence or the present form of government. The rumor was that the Moors were told and were telling others that when the Japanese take over the country, all they had to do was raise the Moorish American flag and the Japanese would not molest them, and they would take them to a place where it was safe and they would not have to fight in war. The temples were at that time scattered because of lack of proper leadership and knowledge of protocols. Some were too busy seeing who would be the boss and apparently forgot to continue to study, so that, for instance, the entire issue of selective service would not have been an issue. The temples turned very drastically into religious association only. The FBI had no interest in religious organizations, as they felt comfortable knowing that if they were religionized, they were not a threat. In fact, the FBI reported that some of the members were too busy for religious thrills, as they had to work for a living and would have no time. However, it is ever so important to note that at the time, we lacked the true meaning of religion, as religion is government, order, and principles. If we knew this then and now, we would not be so far behind in our actions, as we would be active in government and would not allow anyone to violate our divine inheritance and gain a false sense of authority over us and the dominions of our forefathers. The infiltration process began at the very beginning of the investigation. The first place to be infiltrated with microphones was Mount City, Illinois. And then it just goes more into the infiltration, the arrests, failure to comply with the Selective Services Act when they were going to the war. And what we're gonna go to is letter to President Roosevelt's wife. Right? So this is all during the whole FBI investigations and all that, and infiltration in the temple. This is way after the Prophet passed forth. A female wrote a letter to Roosevelt's wife in reference to the WPA. She was trying to save her job because it appeared they were bringing Mexicans in to take the jobs. This woman was practically begging for her job, to help keep her job. She offered information about the Moor Science Temple and said she does not believe in what they are doing. She says the Moors ought to go to the war. She said Moors don't believe in Christianity and therefore she will not have anything to do with them. The interesting thing about this letter is that the FBI underlined all the misspelled words. I don't mean typos. I mean utilizing TWO for TOO and FUO for FEW, THIRE for THEIR, HEAR for HERE.